Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we take, a whole stack of source material, articles, notes, whatever we've got, and we really try to pull out the most important stuff for you. Think of it as your shortcut to getting up to speed, hopefully with a few interesting bits thrown in. Today, we're jumping into a story from Japan. It's known as the Asuka-kai Incident. It's really complex. One guy, a ton of money, and these surprising connections weaving through crime, politics, finance, even social movements.
Yeah, and the source we're digging into today is primarily a pretty detailed Wikipedia article. It lays out the reported facts of this whole tangled affair.
So our mission really is to unpack this thing based on that text. Figure out what happened, sure, but also how it could happen. Why did it cause such a stir? We want to pull out the key facts and, what it all means for you, the listener.
And it's not just some local crime story, right? The source touches on these bigger themes: power, influence, accountability, stuff that resonates. We're going to stick really close to what the source material actually says just to understand the different angles reported.
Okay, let's get into it then. So maybe start at the beginning. What actually was the Asuka-kai?
Right. So the source says it started as a society way back in 1960. Then it became a foundation later, and it was linked to the Asuka branch of the Buraku Liberation League, the BLL.
Okay, the BLL. And its goal?
Initially, pretty straightforward stuff, yeah. Improve community life, welfare. They ran a public bath, things like that.
Simple enough, but it changed.
It did. Became a foundation formally in 71, and then the big shift from 1974, it got this exclusive contract from Osaka City. Really lucrative, apparently. Part of these Dowa countermeasure projects, basically initiatives for former Buraku areas.
And the contract was for?
Operating the Nishinakajima parking lot.
Got it. Okay, enter the main guy. Kunihiko. He sounds quite the character, based on the source.
Yeah, I mean, reportedly a former member of a Yamaguchi-gumi Yakuza group. Kaneda-gumi.
Yakuza background.
But also, and this is key, he was the branch head of that BLL Asuka brand.
At the same time?
Seems so. And then he becomes the director, the Rajicho, of the Asuka-kai Foundation in 1983.
Okay, so he's heading the foundation linked to the BLL, but with this alleged Yakuza past.
Exactly. And the core crime, according to the source, starts right then, 1983, with that parking lot. He allegedly starts underreporting the income. Massively.
How much are we talking?
Well, the source gives an example, reporting maybe 70 million yen when the real revenue was closer to 200 million yen a year.
Wow.
Yeah. And the difference, he apparently embezzled it.
Okay, this is where it gets wild, right? The scale of the money and what he allegedly spent it on.
Oh, yeah. The source says proven embezzlement hit around 600 million yen, though the indictment was for 131 million.
Still a huge amount.
Huge. And the spending, it's almost caricature-level stuff reported in the source.
Like what? Give us some examples.
Okay. A massive coin and currency collection. Spending fortunes going to sports events, sumo matches. He commissioned a coffin for himself, made of cypress. Cost 4.7 million yen.
A coffin, while he was alive.
Yep. And then there's this alleged annual drinking tab. He supposedly bragged it was 100 million yen a year. And then the family expenses. Jewelry, clothes for his wife and daughter, reportedly costing 3 to 5 million yen a month.
Per month?
Per month. Bought his younger daughter a Benz for 6.3 million yen while she was a student, plus monthly allowances. 1 million yen for his wife, 300K for his son, 300K for a mistress. It's all laid out in the source.
Just unbelievable extravagance, seemingly funded by this embezzlement.
And there were other illegal things too, according to the source. In 2003, Konishi, apparently along with the director of a city human rights culture center, were found to have fraudulently gotten health insurance cards. 7 of them. Specifically for former Yakuza members.
Okay, so involving others in the system too.
Right. That Human Rights Center director, also arrested, got a suspended sentence.
So when did this all come crashing down, the arrests?
May 2006 for the main embezzlement charges.
And the conviction?
Pretty quick. Osaka District Court, January 2007. 6 years in prison. And the judge, reportedly, didn't mince words. Called it extremely malicious, taking advantage of his Dowa executive status for personal gain, preying on the city's weak Dowa administration.
Strong words. Did he serve the time?
Well, the source says he appealed, but he died of lung cancer in November 2007 while in the hospital. So the appeal never concluded.
Right, so that's the core crime, the main person. But like you said, the story's bigger because of how this could go on for so long. his network.
Exactly. He wasn't operating in a vacuum. That's clear from the source.
So let's dig into that network. It seems like his influence stretched into some really different areas.
It really did. You have to start with the Yakuza connection, obviously. He was in a Yamaguchi-gumi group early on, but the source suggests he saw becoming a BLL branch head as, well, a better path. More profitable, more power.
Interesting. So he left the Yakuza formally.
Left direct membership, yeah. But reportedly kept really strong ties associated with key figures. There's that weird detail about the apartment where the Yamaguchi-gumi boss, Takanaka Masahisa, was killed. Konishi was named as the owner.
What did he say about that?
Claimed he just lent his name, but it shows proximity, right?
Yeah.
He also reportedly donated 50 million yen to a future Yamaguchi-gumi head.
So definitely staying connected.
Oh, yeah. And it wasn't just friendly ties. His own building got shot up in '97 during some Yakuza conflict, seen as a direct threat because of his connections.
Okay, so deep ties there. But the source says he was also, like, embedded in the establishment. That seems contradictory.
It does, but that's what makes it complex. His
Yeah.
political and bureaucratic ties were apparently extensive. It started way back in the 60s, apparently. He helped Osaka City with tricky land rights stuff during the Osaka Station development. That got his foot in the door.
Okay, early influence.
Then later, he becomes this key figure, like a face for the Osaka Prefectural Dowa Construction Association.
And that mattered because...
It reportedly gave him sway over construction contracts, specifically the ones designated for Duka projects. Big money involved.
So potentially steering public funds.
That's the implication in the source, yeah. And it allegedly went higher. Influence over the National Tax Agency.
Seriously. How?
The source claims he somehow got tax exemption on his bank interest, leveraging agreements about discrimination issues. It's kind of murky how, but the claim is there.
Okay, that's significant. And politicians.
Reported friendships with several LDP politicians gave them election support. One politician, specifically who used to work at the Osaka National Tax Bureau, allegedly buried tax evasion reports about Asuka-kai because he was close to Konishi.
Wow. Direct interference alleged there.
And then there are claims about influencing the police, too. Bribery, helping get jobs.
Even the mayor.
A former Osaka mayor reportedly admitted asking Konishi for help getting someone a job. And Konishi himself apparently testified he did that a lot, recommended BLL members for city jobs.
Just weaving himself into the fabric of the city's operations.
Absolutely. And there's this other story in the source when his welfare foundation was initially denied approval because of his criminal record.
Yep.
He apparently used connections. A right-winger linked to an old Yakuza boss introduced him to an LDP politician who then got him a meeting with the relevant minister, and boom, approval from the national government ministry.
That's an incredible chain of influence. From Yakuza links to national ministries.
It's quite a web described in the source.
Okay, what about the financial world? Banks.
Yeah, another crucial piece. He built this key relationship starting around 1975 with a branch of Sanwa Bank, now Mitsubishi Tokyo UFJ. The origin story varies a bit in the source, maybe helping with school funding, maybe land acquisition for the bank, but the result, preferential treatment, reportedly.
And he acted as a go-between.
That's what the source says, a conduit for loans to his Yakuza associates. He'd apparently make money on the interest rate spread.
So, bridging the gap between a major bank and organized crime.
Effectively, yes. The total loans to him and his welfare group from that bank were massive. Over 8 billion yen mentioned, reportedly used for Yakuza-linked land speculation, which, went bad after the bubble burst, leaving huge debts.
And you mentioned the bank's reaction was different later.
Yeah, we'll get back to that. But the bank did eventually take organizational responsibility, quite a contrast to the BLO's reported stance.
Right. And he also ran actual welfare businesses. Yes, nursing homes.
Yes, founded a social welfare corporation, Tomoshima Welfare Association, in '81, ran nursing homes, other facilities, and got billions in government subsidies for it. Like 4.68 billion yen is mentioned.
And was that disturbing quote attributed to him?
Yeah, really controversial. The source includes it. Welfare is profitable. The elderly don't understand anything anymore, so you can just spray them with a hose to wash them. He apparently denied saying it later.
Yikes. If true, that's grim.
Very grim. Shows a potential mindset, right?
Oh, yeah.
Even towards the vulnerable people his organization was supposed to help.
And then, totally different sphere again, entertainment. How does that fit?
It feels separate, but the source connects the dots. He was known as a tanemachi, a financial backer for celebrities, buying huge blocks of tickets, millions of yen worth.
Any names mentioned?
Yeah, the actor Katsu Shintaro reportedly attended Konishi's father's funeral. Singer Saijo Hideki Konishi was guest of honor, gave a speech at his wedding, shows he was cultivating status and access everywhere, using his wealth.
It's like he was building legitimacy, or at least visibility, in all these different circles.
Seems that way. And the source notes how he managed his identity.
How so?
He'd use his BLL Asuka branch head title when dealing with officials' banks, where it carried weight. But in entertainment circles, he'd introduce himself as the nursing home director.
So choosing the front that suited the situation.
Exactly. Very deliberate image management, it appears.
Okay, so this whole structure, this web of influence, eventually gets exposed with the arrest. Now, what was the fallout? Especially from the BLL.
Right, the aftermath. First, the scale of his personal assets. The source says over 4 billion yen accumulated through these illegal activities.
And the bank loan.
The bank, Mitsubishi Tokyo UFJ, sued for the 8 billion plus. But recovery became tough, especially after he died and his family reportedly gave up their inheritance. So a lot of that might just be lost money.
Okay, and the reactions, you mentioned they were varied. Let's talk BLL first.
Okay, so the Buraku Liberation League, Osaka Prefectural Federation, put out a statement. They acknowledged, some responsibility, failing to spot problems, lack of internal checks.
Okay, some accountability.
But, and this is the crucial part, they strongly asserted the incident was completely unrelated to Dowa issues or Dowa administration. They framed it purely as an individual crime by Konishi.
It's one bad apple spoiling the bottle.
Essentially, yeah. And then they went further, accusing Osaka City of discrimination for, quote, shifting blame onto the Dowa administration. Their argument, as reported, was that the city was weak, easily pressured by Konishi using his BLL title and his Yakuza connections.
So, blame the city, blame the Yakuza ties, but not the BLL system itself.
And they specifically labeled Konishi using his title for crime as Iza Dowa Kuch, fake or pseudo-Dowa activity. Like, he wasn't really acting as part of the movement when he did bad stuff.
Okay, that's one perspective. How did critics respond to that, according to the source?
Very differently. Figures like Kakuka Shinobu really pushed back against the BLL Osaka's stance. Kakuka pointed out that some BLL executives had allegedly received financial support from Konishi for years. He was like a sponsor.
Implying complicity, or at least looking the other way.
That was Kakuka's argument, that these executives ignored Konishi being absent from branch activities, mandatory meetings, basically enabled him. Kakuka argued they were the ones implicitly condoning the Iza Doatu through their inaction.
So, turning the BLO's framing back on them.
Exactly. And another critic, Nadamoto Masahisa, called it workplace confusion and misconduct. Said it stemmed from the power dynamic between the social movement and the administration. Suggested the BLL needed to look inward at its own corrupt nature, especially given how strongly they fight discrimination elsewhere.
That's a pretty sharp critique, so a real clash of narratives.
Absolutely. And this spilled over into how the media covered it. That became another battleground.
What happened there?
The BLL Osaka reportedly sent an open letter to newspapers, accused the coverage of promoting and reproducing discrimination. Basically asking why the story got so much attention, implying bias because of the BLL link.
They felt the focus was discriminatory.
That seems to be the stance described. But Sankei Shimbun newspaper reportedly fired back. They argued, look, the core issue is the BLL branch head abusing his title for crime and the organization failing to stop it. That harms anti-discrimination efforts.
Makes sense.
Sankei said Konishi's actions themselves promoted discrimination, so rigorous media scrutiny wasn't bias, it was necessary.
A strong rebuttal.
Yeah. And the BLL also protested a specific headline in the Mainichi Shimbun, Buraku Liberation League branch head arrested. They argued it should focus on his Asuka-kai director role, claimed the headline hurt innocent BLL members.
But again, critics like Kakuka saw this differently.
Reportedly, yeah. Kakuka called that kind of reaction almost paranoid, saw it as a sign the movement was declining.
Wow. So the incident itself, and then the meta debate about how to even talk about the incident.
Precisely. And remember that contrast with the bank.
Right. Mitsubishi Tokyo UFJ.
While the BLL, according to the source, called it an individual crime, the bank, facing regulatory action, mind you, publicly stated it was not an individual crime, but management and organizational responsibility.
Acknowledging a systemic failure.
A very different approach to accountability, yeah. That contrast is pretty stark in the source material.
And quickly, there was that related case, little Konishi.
Yeah, briefly mentioned in the source. Konishi Kuniko's former driver, also known as Little Konishi, also a BLL branch head, involved in a human rights NPO, and affiliated with a Yamaguchi Gumi group. Like mentor, like disciple, it seems.
And arrested for something similar.
extorting money from construction companies, demanding a local cooperation fee, using his BLL position and Yakuza ties, reportedly working with people in the administration.
So, the same pattern.
The source points to it leveraging that mix of BLL status, Yakuza connections, and administrative collusion. Apparently, paying him off was just standard practice for local businesses wanting public works contracts in Yao City. That was the Yao City bid rigging extortion incident.
It really paints a picture of, well, potentially systemic issues, not just one guy.
It certainly suggests the dynamics weren't unique just to the elder Konishi.
Oh, wow, okay. This deep dive, just based on this one source, the Wikipedia article, it's uncovered a really dense and challenging story.
Yeah, it's way more than just embezzlement. It's about how one person, sitting at this weird crossroads of organized crime, government, finance, social movements, how they could allegedly exploit that position to amass a fortune, a lot of it seemingly from public money meant for good.
Right. And the fallout wasn't just about jail time. It forced this huge, uncomfortable debate about responsibility, accountability, and, the relationship between social movements and power and how that plays out with public funds.
And the source really highlights those clashing perspectives, the BLL, the critics, the bank. It shows how hard it is to get a single clear picture when things are this tangled. Different stakes, different stories.
It's definitely the kind of story that makes you stop and think,
Yeah.
About what might be going on beneath the surface, how these different worlds of influence can connect in ways you don't expect, often with pretty damaging results for public trust.
So maybe a question to leave you, the listener, with thinking about what we've unpacked from the source today. What does this Asuka-kai incident, as detailed here, really tell us about the weak spots, the vulnerabilities in systems, even those meant for public good, when power from different, sometimes opposing worlds gets all mixed up?
Yeah, something to definitely chew on. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.